Good morning. Today we will start with an introduction of the gas turbine. First we will start with the prime movers. The distinctive feature of our civilization, one that makes it different from all other, is the wide use of power from mechanical means. First we used animals for the muscle power. Now the things have changed. We use chemical reactions and convert that energy into mechanical energy. So it revolutionized the world. Machines which serve this purpose are known as heat engines. Gun was the first kind of you can say product which use chemical energy, and heat engine has been developed from the gun. So it is perhaps hard to realize that the vital difference between the bow and the gun was the substitution of gunpowder for the bowman's muscle. Means we had replaced the muscle with the gunpowder. Another revolution was done by the Watt, which used steam piston engine. Here he used the working fluid, which is a steam. So here an intermediate working fluid was used so that the products of combustion did not act directly on the moving parts of the mechanism. So among engines for production of mechanical power, there were three principal competitors in the field. First your steam turbine, then your diesel piston engine, then your gasoline piston engine. So steam turbine, since the beginning of its career around the turn of 19th century, has become the most important prime mover. But disadvantages is because it uses steam, the intermediate fluid, which is high pressure and high temperature. So this involves the installation of a bulky and expensive steam generating equipment, a boiler or a nuclear reactor. The hot gases produced in the boiler furnace or reactor core never reach the turbine. They merely are used to produce an intermediate working fluid, namely steam. So that why our overall structure, or you can say our overall plant, is very heavier in the size and bulky one. Really a much more compact power plant results when the water to steam step is eliminated. Means whatever the working fluid, here is water, we eliminate, and the hot gases themselves are used to drive the turbine directly. So diesel piston engines started replacing bulky steam power plants of ships for power generation, and gasoline engines were used in early days for aircraft propulsion. So the earliest patent on gas turbine was that of Englishman Johann Barber in 1879. Early designs were unsuccessful due to the two factors: the low efficiency of compressor in gas turbine, the combustion temperature limitation imposed by the material temperature limit, that is metallurgical limit of the materials. Of the various means of producing mechanical power available today, the gas turbine in many respects seems to be the most satisfactory power plant. It is mainly due to the absence of reciprocating and rubbing members, which reduce the vibration and balancing problems, high reliability, low lubricating oil consumption, and high power to weight ratio. Simple gas turbine. In order to produce an expansion through a turbine, a pressure ratio must be provided. Hence, the first necessary step in a cycle of gas turbine plant must be compression of the working fluid. If after the compression, the working fluid is to be expanded directly in the turbine and there were no loss in either component, the power developed by the turbine would just equal that absorbed by the compressor. So this is compressor here used to compress the air, and this is turbine for the expansion. So in this case, when we don't add any fuel, the power produced by turbine is just sufficient to run the compressor and we don't have any power output. The power developed by turbine can be increased by the addition of energy to raise the temperature of fluid prior to expansion. When the working fluid is here, a very suitable means of doing this is by combustion of fuel in the air which has been compressed. So in this combustion chamber, we add fuel to the air and they will burn, and we have the gases here, high temperature and high pressure gas. Expansion of working fluid then produce a greater power output from the turbine than the power necessary to drive the compressor. Means now we had more power output at the turbine than just to run the compressor, and thus three main components in this gas turbine are compressor, your combustion chamber and turbine, and we have here this power output. In practical cycle, losses do occur in both compressor and the turbine, which increase the power absorbed by compressor and decrease the power output of the turbine. So a certain minimum addition of energy in the form of fuel to the fluid will therefore be required before one component can drive the other. So this fuel produces no useful power due to component losses and lowering of efficiency of machine. Further addition of fuel will result in useful power output. However, there is a limit to the amount of fuel that can be added because of the metallurgical limit of the material. Because if you increase the temperature beyond a limit, the material of which this turbine is made will be melt, and we can't go beyond that limit. Now the main factor which affect the performance of gas turbine are efficiencies of both the components, the compressor as well as turbine. In case of compressor, we can achieve 60% efficiency and a maximum gas temperature of 740 Kelvin. This is the experiment done by French engineer in 1904. So the overall efficiency of gas turbine cycle mainly depends on pressure ratio of the compressor. The development of science of aerodynamics and that of metallurgically made it possible to employ very high pressure ratio 20:1 with an adequate compressor efficiency of 85 to 90% and high turbine inlet temperature up to 1500 Kelvin. So there are two possible types of combustion process. One is at constant pressure and second is at constant volume. Theoretically, the thermal efficiency of constant volume cycle is greater, but it is not possible because of the addition of the walls, which is not feasible in case of gas turbine because it is a continuous burning process in the combustion chamber. So after a certain initial attempts, constant volume type combustion process was discontinued. We will start with the review of basic principles. Introduction. Turbines and compressors are usually analyzed using thermodynamic and fluid dynamic equations. The thermodynamic equations relate temperature, pressure and volume, whereas the fluid dynamic equations relate force, mass and velocity. The following are the laws that are frequently used in dealing with problems and operation of these machines. So energy equation in its various forms, from the first law of thermodynamics, temperature, entropy and gas relations from the second law of thermodynamics, continuity relationship from the law of conservation of mass, and momentum equations from Newton's second law of motion. So definition and laws. Before discussing the various aerothermodynamic aspects of compressor and turbine, let us review some of the important definitions in the analysis of compressible flow useful for rotating machines. System. A fixed entity with an arbitrary collection of matter is known as system. The boundary is an imaginary surface which separates the system from its surroundings. Surroundings are those which are outside the system. System can be classified as either an open system or closed system. When there is a continuous flow of matter, it is called an open system. Such a system is usually depicted by control volume. It has a fixed space but does not contain a fixed mass of matter. Instead, there is a continuous flow of the mass through it. Closed system. When there is a fixed quantity of matter, fluid or gas, it is called closed system. Internal combustion engine is an example of closed system. Then you have state. Condition of system defined by its properties is known as state of the system. Process. A change of or a series of changes in a state of a system is known as a process. Cycle. If the initial and final states of a system experience a series of processes are identical, it is said to have executed a cycle. The example of cycle are gas turbine, Otto cycle, diesel cycle, Brayton cycle. Pressure. Pressure at a point surrounded by an infinitesimal area, del A, is the force per unit area. Pressure is usually designated by Pascal in SI units. It may also be expressed as Newton per meter square or bar. Density. The density of a medium is the mass of the matter per unit volume. Density is expressed in kg per meter cube. Temperature. When two systems are in contact with each other and are in thermal equilibrium, the property common to both the systems having the same value is called temperature. Thus, temperature is a measure of thermal potential of a system. Energy. The capacity to do work is called energy. The state of a system can be changed by adding or removing energy. So, heat and work are different forms of energy in transient. They are not contained in any system. Heat is a form of energy which transfer between two systems by virtue of temperature difference between them. So, heat transfer to or from a system changes the system state. So, work is said to be done by a system on its surrounding when they are moved through a distance by the action of force. So, work is equal to force into distance in the direction of force. Both heat and work are path functions and they depend on the type of process and therefore are not dependent on the properties of the system. First law of thermodynamics is state that when a system executes a cyclic process, The algebraic sum of work transfer is proportional to the algebraic sum of heat transfer. So you can write in this form. It can be easily seen that the quantity dq minus dw is independent of path of process, and hence it represents a change in the property of a system. So this property is referred to as energy, denoted by E. So you can write d is equal to dq minus dw. When you integrate, you will get E2 minus E1 is equal to Q minus W, or Q is equal to work plus change in energy. So heat transfer is equal to work done plus change in energy. Specific heat of gases. One is your specific heat at constant volume, second is your specific heat at constant pressure. So it is denoted by this symbol. So this Cv is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a unit mass of gas by 1 degree at constant volume. Specific heat at constant pressure is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a unit mass of gas by 1 degree at constant pressure. And the ratio of two specific heats Cp and Cv is called gamma. Internal energy of a gas is the energy stored in it by virtue of its molecular motion. So it is assumed that the internal energy of a perfect gas is 0 at absolute 0 temperature. Its value at a temperature T is given by, so this is your internal energy, it is Cv, specific heat at constant volume into temperature. So enthalpy will include the flow energy, which is P into V. If you add internal energy plus if this PV, you will get enthalpy. It is also defined as the product of specific heat at constant pressure into temperature. Ideal gas obeys Poisson law and Charles law. So PV, when your temperature is equal to constant for Poisson law, and V by T when your pressure is constant is Charles law. Also ideal gas obeys the simple equation that PV is equal to RT. If you take V on this side, it will become P is equal to rho RT. So we know two specific heats are related, Cp minus Cv is equal to R, and we can use this specific heat ratio, and combined we will get this equation here. Perfect gas. For a perfect gas, your specific heat will remain constant with change in temperature. So d by d of specific heat at constant volume is equal to 0, and same d by dt of specific heat at constant pressure is 0. Semi-perfect gas, in this case Cv and Cp is a function of temperature. They will vary with temperature. So we in gas turbine we use real gases, and which does not follow these equations. So it does not obey the equation of state, which is PV is equal to RT. So these equations are not valid for real gases. Second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics can be stated in a number of ways. Some of them are as follows. Clausius statement: heat cannot on its flow from a body at lower temperature to a body at higher temperature. Kelvin-Planck statement: it is impossible to construct a heat engine which performs a complete cycle and delivers work exchanging heat from a single source. So this is your Clausian equality. For any reversible process, the entropy change is always greater than or equal to 0. So this must be greater than or equal to 1 to 2 dq by t. Or you can say in a reversible process, ideal process, entropy change is always greater than 0. In any reversible cycle, this quantity is 0. So it means for reversible process, this entropy change must be 0. Reversible process. A process is reversible if the system and its surrounding can be restored to their initial states by reversing the process. A reversible process in a flow machine is possible only in the absence of fluid friction and heat transfer with finite temperature difference. So since these conditions are impossible to achieve in actual process, all real flow in compressor and turbine are irreversible. Adiabatic process. If during a process there is no heat transfer between system and the surrounding, it is known as an adiabatic process. All rotating machines discussed in this book are assumed to follow only adiabatic process. Isentropic process. An adiabatic process in which entropy remains constant is known as reversible adiabatic or isentropic process. For unit mass, this is governed by the following relation: PV raised to power gamma is equal to constant. So when you place PV in terms of R and T, you will get this relation T1 by T2 in terms of P1 by P2, and you can also get V2 by V1 and density in terms of density. We know TDS is equal to DH minus VDB. So this is also equation which is for isentropic process. Non-flow process, a process that occurs in a closed system is a non-flow process. One such example is shown in this figure. So 1 to 2 is your expansion. This is non-flow process in a closed system. So say this is the pressure at this process. So you take this small element. So this will give you the work during the non-flow process. This is dV, change in volume. So work of this small element is equal to P into dV. When you integrate from 1 to 2, you will get the complete work, which is P dV 1 to 2. When you solve using this relation and using this relation, you will get, so this is your work, which is, you can write U1 minus U2, which is change in internal energy. Flow process, a process that occurs in an open system or in a controlled volume is a flow process. So this is example of a flow process. The volume of the system is constant. So this is change in pressure, which is dP. So when you integrate, you can write as minus VdP, because this is during expansion. So this is negative. When you integrate from 1 to 2, you will get, on solving, you will get this equation, which is Cp T1 minus T2. So process occurring in all turbo machines are of this type, which involve flow work also. So this is Cp, which is T1 minus T2, where Cp is equal to this. This is Cp, which is gamma by gamma minus 1 into R from this equation. Now in this case, your work is equal to H minus H2, which also involve the flow work. Enthalpy is equal to U plus PV. So PV in this case is your flow work. Energy equation. The energy equation is derived from the first law of thermodynamics, which is Q is equal to work plus E2 minus E1. We know that energy includes internal energy, your gravitational potential energy and kinetic energy. Take derivative, you will get this equation. So the change in energy in a finite process between two states is given by this equation. So replace this E2 minus E1 in this equation. You will get this equation here. Divide by mass, you will get this equation. For a steady flow process through turbo machines, the work term, this will contain shaft work and flow work. So you can write this W as Ws, shaft work, and this is your flow works. So replace this value of W in this equation. You will get this equation here. So this is your enthalpy, which is U plus PV. So replace by H, and on rearranging, you will get this equation where W is your shaft work. So in terms of specific quantities, you will get H small h1 plus Z1 plus this is equal to this. So this equation is steady flow energy equation for a control volume or an open system. So hydro turbo machines, in case of hydro turbo machines, U1 is equal to U2 because the temperature change 0 and your internal energy is a function of temperature only. So U1 becomes U2. So means this U1 and U2, this will cancel out and you will get in terms of P2 and P1. So at place of H you will get P2 and P1. So you will get this equation here, which will give you shaft work. So in stationary components such as guide vanes or draught tubes, the shaft work is 0. So this W is 0, and on rearranging you will get this equation, which is change in the velocity, and C2 square minus C1 square is equal to this for the guide vanes and draught tubes. So compressible flow machine, in case of compressible flow machine, the process is adiabatic. So Q is 0. So this Q will become 0. A change in potential energy Z1 minus Z2 is also negligible as compared to change in enthalpy and kinetic energy. So you will get this equation where shaft work is equal to this component plus minus this component. So if the entry and exit velocity are small or difference between them is negligible, then shaft work is equal to change in enthalpy. Energy transformation. It may be noted that energy transfer, shaft work input or output in a turbo machine stage is possible only in rotor, whereas energy transformation can occur both in moving and fixed blades. So you can use this energy equation for the nozzle and blade rakings and diffuser and volute casings. So in that casing, your shaft work is 0 in the nozzle, blade and rings. So this energy equation will become this, which is constant stagnation enthalpy. In an adiabatic energy transfer process, if the initial state is represented by H, T and C etc. and the final gas velocity is 0, means this component C2 it is 0, then you will get your H2 become H0. So where H0 is known as stagnation enthalpy, thus the stagnation enthalpy can be defined as enthalpy of gas or vapor when it is adiabatically brought to rest. Now we note H is equal to Cp T0. You can replace this enthalpy in terms of Cp and temperature. You will get this equation, and on rearranging you will get this T0, where this T0 is called stagnation temperature. So T0 is known as stagnation temperature, whereas T is the static temperature and C square by 2Cp is equivalent to kinetic energy temperature, which is Tc. So this term is your Tc. You will get this equation. So divide this equation by temperature and replace this Cp by this equation. You will get this equation. Now we know velocity of sound in a gas as temperature T is given by, so is the velocity of sound, which is equal to gamma RT, and we also know this is Mach number, where A is your velocity of a sound in the gas. So put the value of A from this equation here. Now replace this gamma RT in this equation in terms of M and C. You will get this equation here. Stagnation velocity of sound. Stagnation values of various flow parameters are used as reference values in the analysis of compressive flow machines. So therefore an expression for stagnation velocity of sound is derived here, which is A0 is equal to gamma R T0, where T0 is your stagnation temperature. Substituting for R in terms of gamma and Cp, you will get this equation, where this is your stagnation enthalpy H0. So you will get A0 is equal to under gamma minus 1 into H0. Stagnation pressure. Stagnation pressure is the pressure of the gas or fluid when it is brought to rest adiabatically and reversibly. So this is your relation between stagnation pressure and stagnation pressure. Now replace this T0 by T from this equation, where T0 by T is equal to this. So you will get this equation here. Stagnation density. So the density of stationary gas or vapor is stagnation density. For an ideal gas, its value is known. Values of stagnation temperature pressure is given by. So this is your stagnation density, which is stagnation pressure by R into stagnation temperature. So you have this ratio of stagnation density to the density, which is T0 by T. You can replace this T0 by T with this here. You will get this equation. Stagnation state. The concept of a reference state of a gas in a compressible flow machine is very useful. The stagnation state of a gas is often used as a reference state. A state defined by stagnation temperature and pressure is stagnation state of the gas. So this state is obtained by deaccelerating a gas isentropically to zero velocity, Mach angle and Mach cone. In a flow field, if a small disturbance is introduced, it will be felt throughout the field in the form of a wave traveling at the local velocity of sound related to the medium. So in this case, your aircraft is moving at zero velocity. So this is your wave traveling. Consider the propagation of pressure disturbance shown in figure. Assume the object will move with the velocity c is equal to 0, c is equal to a by 2, c is equal to a, and c greater than a. So c is equal to a by 2 here. So here c is equal to a. Here c greater than a. The moving object creates a disturbance waves. The disturbance waves will reach stationary observer before the source of disturbance. So this is your source of the disturbance and this is the observer. So disturbance will reach before the observer source. The disturbance waves will reach a stationary observer before the source of disturbance. So could reach him in subsonic flow. Suppose here is the observer. So this wave will reach before your source will reach. So this flow is your supersonic, because C is greater than A. So in this case, it takes considerable amount of time for an observer to perceive the pressure disturbance after the source has been passed. Means source will pass first and the waves will be reached after the source has passed. So this is one of the fundamental difference between subsonic and supersonic flows. So these flows are subsonic while this flow is your supersonic flow. It is shown that for supersonic motion of an object, there is a well-defined conical zone in the flow field with the object located at the nose of the cone. So this is your object moving and this is the cone. The disturbance created by the moving object is confined only to the field included inside the zone. So this is the cone in which there is a disturbance, and outside this cone there is no disturbance. In a subsonic flow, the streamlines sense the presence of any obstacle in the flow field and adjust themselves ahead of it and the flow around it smoothly. This is Mach number less than 1. This is your subsonic flow, and streamline will adjust according to the shape of the object before the object will reach. What in supersonic flow, the streamline feel the obstacle only when they hit it. This is your supersonic flow when your Mach number is greater than 0. So streamline won't able to adjust and it will produce a shock. It should be noted that the disturbance due to obstacle is sudden and therefore the flow behind the obstacle has to change abruptly. So we can write sin mu is equal to this AT by CT, which is A by C, where C is the velocity of the object and A is the velocity of sound. So it is 1 by Mach, where Mach number is the ratio of the velocity of object to the objective velocity of the sound. When the medium is incompressible, Mach number is 0, or when the speed of moving disturbance is negligible small compared to the local sound speed, the pressure pulse created by the disturbance will be spread uniformly in all directions. This is case when your waves will travel uniformly in all directions. When the disturbance source moves with a subsonic speed, Mach number less than 1, the pressure disturbance will be felt in all directions at all points in space. The pressure pattern will not be symmetrical. So in these cases, you can see the pressure waves are not uniform. For sonic velocity, when your Mach number is 1, the pressure pulse will be at the boundary between subsonic and supersonic flow. You can see these two are coinciding. Your object is at the same place where is your pressure wave. So your object and pressure wave will coincide with each other. For supersonic speeds, Mach number greater than 1, the disturbance wave phenomena are totally different from those at subsonic speeds. So all the pressure disturbance are included in a cone which has the disturbance source at its apex. The effect of the disturbance is not felt upstream of the disturbance source. So the pressure wave disturbance lies within the cone. So at the front of cone, your object, this is your object here, and you can see outside this cone there is no disturbance of pressure waves, small disturbance. So when the apex angle of the wedge delta is extremely small, you can see this delta is very small, the disturbance will be small. Then we can consider these to be identical to sound pulses. In such a case, the deviation of streamlines will be small. There will be infinitely small increase in pressure across the Mach cone as shown in figure. Finite disturbance, when the wedge angle delta, this is delta is finite, the disturbance introduced are finite, and then the wave is not called Mach wave but a shock or shock wave. The angle of shock beta is always smaller than the Mach angle. So in this case you can see the deviation of streamline is finite and there is a finite pressure increase across the shock wave. Transonic flow, when a body is kept in transonic flow, Mach number between 0.8 and 0.2, it experiences subsonic flow over some portions of its surface and supersonic over other portions. There is also possibility of shock formation on the body. It is this mixed nature of the flow field which makes the study of transonic flow complicated. The temperature at stagnation point and over the surface of an object in the hypersonic flow becomes very high and therefore it requires special treatment. That is, we must consider the thermodynamic aspects of the flow along with the gas dynamic aspects. That is why hypersonic flow theory is also called aerothermodynamic theory. Steam tube area velocity relation. In this section, let us consider quasi one-dimensional flow allowing the stream to have area A to vary with distance x. You can see this is your quasi one-dimensional flow. So let us consider this with area Ax, which is a function of x, P pressure function of x, density function of x, temperature function of x, velocity function of x. So we know from continuity equation density into area into velocity is equal to constant. Take derivative with respect to c, you will get this equation. By keeping density and velocity constant, take the derivative of a. Now keeping a constant, take the derivative of velocity with respect to c is equal to 0. Now consider this term only. We can write in this form density into c. We can separate. First we will take the derivative of density, which is this c into del density derivative. We can divide by dp and multiply by dp, and you will get this equation here. Plus then you have to take derivative of velocity. When you take derivative of velocity, you will get dc by dc, which will cancel out. You will get area into density. Now these two terms can be written as, here we take this term dp by dc, which can be written as minus density into c. How? We know we can express stagnation pressure in terms of this 1 by 2 density to c square plus pressure. So we take this term here, which is 1 by 2 density square. We will put this term into equation. So put the pressure term here, and when you take the derivative of this term, you will get negative, because with the increase in velocity your pressure will decrease. So that's why this term is negative. Now take the second term, which is dp, d pressure, dp by d density, which is equal to a square. Now put these two terms in here in this equation. We also know that Mach number is equal to c by a. This is your Mach number. So this become Mach number square. So now you can replace this term from here to here. You will get this equation. On rearranging, you will get this equation. Now this equation is called area velocity relation. Now for incompressible flow, means when your Mach number tends to 0, means that velocity of fluid is very low. So this will become 0, and you will get dAc by dc is equal to minus a by c. And when you integrate, you will get ac to constant, or means density does not play any role because density is constant. So we can also consider this equation. We can, if density is constant, we can take density on this side, and we say area into velocity is equal to constant, which is famous volume conservation equation or quantity equation for incompressible flow. So if your Mach number lies between 0 and 1, you can see if Mach number lies between 0 and 1, so this derivative is negative, which means if your area will decrease, you had increase in the velocity. So derivative of quantity is negative, means the one term will decrease and another term will decrease, and vice versa. So for this, when your Mach number is less than 1, when Mach number is less than 1, then in your convergent duct your velocity will increase. You can see C2 is greater than C1. It means when you go on this side, your velocity will increase. And in divergent duct, you can see velocity will decrease. C2 is less than C1. You can say C2 less than C1. Now when your Mach number is greater than 1, you can see if you put M greater than 1, so this term will be negative. And if this is negative, this is negative, negative become positive. So it means if your velocity will increase, the area will increase, or vice versa. If the area of duct will increase, velocity through of the flow will increase. You can see in this here. So when your Mach number greater than 1, your velocity will increase when your area of duct will increase. So you can see as compared to this section, here area is more. So in case of decrease, when your area will decrease, your velocity will decrease. From the above discussion, it is clear that for a gas to expand isentropically from subsonic to supersonic speeds, it must be flow through a convergent divergent duct as shown in figure. For Mach number less than 1, this duct is your convergent and velocity will increase, and this is a throat, and this is at which your Mach number is 1. This is called throat, and beyond which your duct is divergent. Even after it is divergent, because of Mach number greater than 1, the velocity will increase continuously even in the divergent duct, which is this case here. When your Mach number is greater than 1, your velocity will increase even in divergent duct. So when you have a flow which is first subsonic and then it will become supersonic, so you have to use a convergent divergent duct. Normal shock waves, the shock may be described as a compression front in supersonic flow field, and the flow process across the front results in abrupt change in the fluid properties. So the thickness of shock is comparable to the mean free path of the gas molecules in the flow field. So when your velocity of the object, this object is very large as compared to the velocity of the sound, which means Mach number greater than 1, you can see this is your shock, and this thickness of shock is comparable to the mean free path of the gas molecules. From the kinetic theory of gases, it is known that the flow consists of large number of fluid molecules in unit volume. The transport of mass, momentum and energy takes place through the motion of these molecules. Also, the molecules carry the signals about the presence of the cylinder around the flow field at a speed equal to the speed of sound. So means the molecules which are here far from the object, they will get the information about this object in advance due to the momentum transferred by these molecules to these molecules. So these molecule will adjust if the speed is very slow, means when your Mach number is very less. So when the object speed is slow, these molecule will adjust accordingly. Now when this object move at a very high velocity, means Mach number is greater than 1, means object will move faster than the speed of the sound. So there is no chance that this molecule will get information in advance of the presence of this body. The reflected signals from the face of cylinder tend to coalesce a short distance ahead of the body. Their coalescence forms a thin compression front called shock wave. So this is your shock wave. So upstream of the shock wave in this region, there is no information about the presence of this body. So in this area there is no information that this body is present. The shock formation takes place after the fluid molecules impinge onto the face of the cylinder and rebound. Let us zoom to sections 1 and 2 sufficiently away from non-equilibrium region so that we can define fluid properties at these stations. So this is your section 1 where fluid properties are this pressure P1, V1, T1 and ST1. This is section 2 where these are the fluid properties, and this is non-equilibrium region in which the fluid properties will change. So we taken 2 sections. So this is the non-equilibrium region here. Now this is your quantity equation and this is your momentum equation. The datum is neglected here because Z1 is equal to Z2. This is momentum equation, and this is your energy equation, which is enthalpy plus kinetic energy. So these 2 equations 2.79 and 2.81 are general and they apply to all the gases, although there is no restriction on the size or details of non-equilibrium as long as the reference section 1 and 2 are outside of it. The solution of these equations will provide the relations that must exist between the flow parameters at these 2 sections. Means by solving these 2 equations, you will get a relation between these parameters at this section and parameters at this section. Now we will diminish this non-equilibrium region to a very thin line. So this is a very thin line here. Now take this section and this section, and across this very thin line fluid properties jump very abruptly. So such a front or discontinuity across the flow will lead to change in the properties abruptly, and this is called a shock wave. So there is no heat transfer, heat taken or taken away or heat added. So it means your shock wave is your adiabatic process. Hence the flow across the shock wave is adiabatic, means from here to here your flow is adiabatic because there is no heat transfer here. Very high gradients occur in shock waves in the transition from state 1 to state 2. These severe gradients produce viscous stress and heat transfer. It means non-equilibrium condition inside the shock wave. The processes taking place inside the shock wave are very complex and they are beyond the scope of this book. We are more interested on the net change in fluid properties taking place across the wave. Oblique shock and expansion waves. It should be understood that in normal shock, a compression wave normal to the flow direction is generated. However, in majority of physical situations, a compression wave deployed at an angle to the flow occurs. Such a wave is called oblique shock wave. You can see this is your oblique shock. which is not at 90 degree but at some inclination. So if we superimpose a uniform velocity normal to the upstream flow of a normal shock, then it will result in a flow field of oblique shock wave. Oblique shocks usually occur when a supersonic flow is turned into itself. The opposite of this means when a supersonic flow is turned away from itself, results in a formation of expansion fan. You can see this is, and these two situations are reverse of each other, opposite. So these two families of waves play a dominant role in the flow fields involving supersonic velocities. So in this case, the flow is deflected into itself by oblique shock. All the streamlines are deflected by same angle theta. So results in uniform parallel flow downstream of shock. The angle theta is referred as flow deflection angle. Across the shock wave, the Mach number decrease. You can see Mach number will decrease on this side. And here your pressure, density and temperature will increase. So this corner is called compression or concave corner. This is called expansion or convex corner. The flow is turned away from itself through an expansion fan. So in this case you can see the Mach number will increase upstream of the flow and all these streams will turn by same angle theta. Pressure, density and temperature will decrease along the flow direction. Flow with friction and heat transfer. So far we have discussed compressible flow of gases in ducts, whereas change in fluid properties were brought about solely by change in area. But in actual case, viscosity effects are play a dominant role. So in real flow situations like stationary power plants, aircraft propulsion, high vacuum technology, transport of natural gas in long pipelines, transport of fluids in chemical process plants and various types of flow system, the high speed flow travels through passage of sufficient length. Flow in constant area, duct with friction. Consider one-dimensional steady flow of a perfect gas with constant specific heats through a constant area duct. Also let there be neither external heat exchange nor external short work. Let difference in elevation produce negligible changes compared to frictional effects. The flow with above mentioned conditions, namely adiabatic flow with no external work, is called Fano-line flow. Now this is your energy equation for Fano-line flow, which is H plus C square by 2 is equal to H naught. So mass flow rate divided by area is equal to density to C, and it is called G, where G is called mass velocity. You can replace this term C square in terms of G. You will get this equation here, which is H naught minus G square by 2 density square. So where H and H naught are static and stagnation enthalpy. The friction coefficient F is defined as F is equal to wall shearing stress divided by dynamic head of the stream. So the hydraulic diameter is diagonal 4 cross sectional area divided by wetted perimeter. So if you define hydraulic diameter, so it means it is valid for circular as well as non-circular cross section. The maximum length of the duct required for the flow to choke for a given initial Mach number is given by this equation here, where F dash is the mean friction coefficient with respect to duct length, which is local friction coefficient integral upon 0 to L maximum into a 1 by L maximum. So here you will get mean friction coefficient. The duct length required for a flow to pass from a given initial Mach number M1 to a given final Mach number M2 can be obtained from the expression this here. It should be understood that Fano flow friction always drives the Mach number towards unity, deaccelerating a supersonic flow and accelerating a subsonic flow. For a given initial Mach number for a certain value of length, the flow becomes sonic. For this condition, the flow is said to be choked, since any further increase in length is not possible without causing a drastic change of the inlet conditions. For instance, if the inlet conditions were achieved by expansion through a supersonic nozzle, and if L were larger than that allowed for attaining Mach number 1 at the exit, then a normal shock would form inside the supersonic nozzle and the duct initial inlet conditions would suddenly become subsonic. It is important to note that friction always causes the total pressure to decrease where the inlet flow is subsonic or supersonic. Further, unlike the Rayleigh curve for the flow with heating or cooling, the upper and lower proportion of Fano curve cannot be transferred by same one-dimensional flow. In other words, it is not possible to first deaccelerate a supersonic flow to sonic condition by friction and then further retard it to subsonic speeds also by friction. Since subsonic deacceleration violates the second law of thermodynamics, means the flow laminar flow. In laminar flow, the fluid flows over a body in orderly parallel layers with no components fluctuations in any of the three directions x, y and z direction. In such a flow, the surface friction force predominates and keeps the flow parallel to the surface. The value of Reynolds number in such flow are comparatively lower. Turbulent flow, at higher values of Reynolds number, the inertia force becomes prominent and the fluid particles no longer constrained to move in parallel layers. Such a flow experiences small fluctuations components Cx, Cy and Cz in three reference stations. These fluctuations cause continuous mixing of various layers of flow, leading to flow equalization in the major part of the flow field. On account of different flow patterns in laminar and turbulent flow, the velocity profile in these are different. This is laminar flow, this is turbulent. Degree of freedom. The presence of small scale fluctuations Cx, Cy and Cz of the velocity superimposed on the main flow is called turbulence. The degree of turbulence is defined by 1 by c under 1 by 3 Cx dash square plus Cy dash square plus Cz dash square. So this is the velocity profile at section A. The velocity of the fluid on the passage wall is 0 at this point 0. So, and it is fully developed to the free stream velocity which is C infinity over a short distance of delta from the wall. The boundary layer is absent in viscous flow. The effect of viscosity is prominent in this region, causing high energy losses. The boundary layer thickness decreases increase in Reynolds number. So this thickness will decrease as your velocity will increase. So this is your velocity profile. At this surface, the velocity is 0 and your velocity starts to increase and then it will become free stream velocity. Friction factor or coefficient of skin friction is a measure of friction resistance offered to the flow. This is defined by shear stress divided by half into density c square, where F is your Fanny coefficient of skin friction. So boundary layer separation. The boundary layer is the slow moving or tired layer of the flow near a solid surface. When the flow occurs in the direction of static pressure rise, the boundary layer becomes thicker and reverse if the static pressure gradient is too high. The leaving of the boundary layer from the surface and its reversal is known as separation. This leads to chaotic flow, large drag and high energy losses. In accelerating flow, on account of continuously decreasing static pressure, the thickening of the boundary layer is prevented. In fact, the high inertia forces make it thinner. The wave pressure drop helps in washing down any localized thickening of the boundary layer or its separation. The separation of boundary layer and the point of separation depend on the geometry and roughness of the surface, nature of the flow and Reynolds numbers. In order to achieve high lift and good performance, it is necessary to prevent or delay the separation of boundary layer. Two methods to achieve this are sucking away the deaccelerating layer, energizing it by injecting high energy fluid parallel to the surface.